Hi, Kate. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Doing fine. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Beautiful. I'm doing great too. And thank you so very much for being here. And you see, Kate, oftentimes I love to thank my guests for two main things. All right. Firstly, Kate, I want to thank you for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you invested in yourself. And oftentimes I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, Kate, some months back, alright, I was on a particular road and just by the roadside, there was this tall, unattractive mango tree. And I use the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it and the leaves were all dry. And I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Kate, just recently I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed. You see, the mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the heart to, move closer and have a good look. The moment I got closer, Kate, it wowed me because now it's got a lot of mangoes on it, healthy green leaves and healthy branches. And you see, the mangoes weren't just ordinary mangoes, but ripe ones. So it was a beautiful moment that day. My point is, the fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing person that you are today, that alone has made it really impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you see you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of your work. And here you are, myself and the audience are about to benefit from the fruit of your insight and all that you're doing. You're blessed, I tell you. So thank you for investing in yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if Kate had said nope, there was nothing I could do about it. Thank you so very much.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
yeah, beautiful. So let's get started. You see, Kate, I am quite excited to have you on the show today for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. For I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Kate, I believe it takes the application of knowledge. And not just knowledge, but the application of it. And you see, Kate, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness means ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. The second reason why I'm excited to have the amazing Kate on the show is for the sake of the listeners. You see, Kate, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality information. And I'm totally convinced, Kate, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, Kate, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or professional journey. We are just so curious right now. We want to know how Kate got it. Then afterwards, I've got some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Kate, over to you.
Okay. So, where I am now, my company is Digestion by Design. And this came from my own, literally decades long struggle with IBS. And I did all of the traditional things where I tried this diet, that diet. I had all the testing done, doing the CT, the MRI, getting all the labs done, ultrasound, all for everything to come back telling me that everything looked normal on paper. And yet, what was happening on paper wasn't matching me as a person. And so that's where the disconnect went. And it was really personally frustrating for me because my college education is in nutrition and dietetics, and I should be able to, as a dietitian, use food to fix me and what was going on there. And that wasn't happening. And it was incredibly frustrating. Trying all of those standard things, the low FODMAP diet, changing fiber intake, more water, stress, doing exercise, like all those things, it still just wasn't like there was something missing. And I knew that. So really just basically taking everything that I knew and just saying, okay, clearly this isn't working. There needs to be something else. And really just digging through and starting to connect the dots, asking that question of why it was something that I couldn't get an answer to. So that's where my own just curiosity, like I need to dig deeper. I was always trained to be very research based in all of my education. So then starting to just put the puzzle pieces together where inflammation is this big key, and how does inflammation affect this? So then looking at research articles from the point of, these inflammatory markers are associated with this condition and that condition, and then really kind of reverse engineering it in a way to say, okay, like this seems to really be at the root of what's going on. And then doing some more digging for extra continuing education as a dietitian, finding out that there actually is an inflammatory test. So I got trained in that and doing a very specific protocol. And when I did that, that was when IBS it was nothing short of just being an absolute lifesaver, game changer for me. And so that was really the catalyst for launching my private practice, because it's absolutely not okay. Also my experience working as a physical therapist, quality of life is huge. Being able to function. I worked a lot in the assisted independent living. So working in the older 65 and over communities, the geriatric setting, quality of life is huge. And so that also affects you if you are, trying to get your career off the ground, if you are a mom to young kids and you're sidelined by so many other things. And so that became, this really needs to change. There needs to be a different way to do this. We need to change the thoughts that we have that there's just one way to do it. And really that became the catalyst for everything. Just if I was struggling and suffering in silence with the education that I had in my background, for someone who say, an accountant who isn't in that health space, what's going on there? And so that was really just the big game changer, and I haven't looked back since.
You haven't looked back saying, that's amazing. And the part that caught my attention pretty good is quality of life is huge. That's so correct. And thank you for all the beautiful things that you're doing. So we're going to pick the first question from nutrition. All right. So why is personalized nutrition important for health? Can you talk to us about it?
Yeah. So when we're thinking of it, when someone has some sort of health struggle going on, it's here, you have this diagnosis, so just have this diet. And there's such a disconnect there because it's not taking into account so many potential other factors that could be affecting that diagnosis. We're not just a whole bunch of different body systems, right? Like it's all inside this, bag of skin that we have, and everything is all connected. All of these things work together. What's happening in one organ can affect another. And if we're not looking at stress and how that can affect, if we're not looking at someone's lifestyle, are they exercising, moving, just doing something other than say sitting all day? What is the quality of the food that they're eating? So not even just like following a diet sheet of these specific foods, but what is the quality of that? Like, where are you getting your vitamins, your minerals from, and all of those kinds of things? Fiber, are you adequately hydrated? So when you start to look at a person in their unique circumstances, you can learn so much more and cut through the noise and save time in the long run, where, okay, this is what we're dealing with. This is what we have to work through. We're working on, and then move that person in a very specific way instead of, well, I have this diagnosis, so I just have to follow these foods, and then nothing else is really addressed. So looking at you as a person instead of a diagnosis can really be such a huge impact in someone's life.
Got it. I never knew that. Thank you for sharing that with us, Kate. Okay, so how does gut health affect mood, focus, and energy?
So when we're thinking about what's going on in the gut, right, this is where all of our food is coming in, it's being digested, it's being absorbed. This is where we have so many of our hormone reactions, our neurotransmitters, so many things, the microbiome. Those bacteria there are largely responsible for how all of our body systems work. And so if we're not digesting and absorbing foods properly to really extract those minerals and those nutrients that our bodies need, then it's going to have a biochemical impact on how all of these different pathways in the body work. So if we have nutrient deficiencies, that can be affecting focus, mood, attention, anxiety, like pretty much anything. We really can have that connection back to, nutrient deficiencies and things like that. So if we have an inflamed gut, where we're not being able to digest, absorb our nutrients properly, then that's where we can start to see these things manifest. And it might not be really obvious, but it's just these little things that can fill the bucket. It's an analogy that I like to use where we have, a little bit of one thing coming in, another, we have a little bit of stress, poor sleep, and then inflammation can start to really take hold. And then it becomes this snowball and we're filling this bucket, the bucket overflows. And so we might think, I have a little bit of joint pain or I have a little bit of a migraine. But when we trace that back, like I said before, like reverse engineering, then we can start to put things together. Okay, what do you specifically look like and how does that make a difference? So that gut being like the hub on a wheel can affect all of the different areas of our body, from really nutrition, what's happening there, the inflammation, what's allowed to get through. And so it's really, really, really impactful there.
Amazing, amazing. I got that too. And you see, I would have to listen to our conversation over and over again because I want to consume every invaluable information that it contains. Thank you. Okay, we still have some more, yeah? All right. So, what is that one common health belief that you strongly disagree with and why?
Oh gosh. So I would say at the foundation, just that everyone should be doing one thing. So in my work specifically, I work a lot with inflammation, calming down the inflammation in the gut. And there's all this standard, like, quote unquote, cookie cutter advice that's out there where, if you have joint pain, you should just take turmeric. Or, if you're sleeping, like having difficulty sleeping, then take melatonin. Like there's this connection. If you have this, then do that. But it can be so much deeper than that. So for example, I had a client who was struggling with a variety of things, joint pain being one of them. And he came to me saying, I take turmeric all the time. It's supposed to be great for joint pain. It's supposed to be, a natural alternative to taking, say, Tylenol or something like that. And when we did the inflammatory testing, it turned out that he was really reactive to turmeric. So he thought he was doing right by his body by taking something that we do know, turmeric, the curcumin that's in it, does have anti-inflammatory benefits and it can be really great. But coming back to that personalized piece of things, when you discover what your body actually prefers, you could think that you're doing something right, but it could actually be part of the problem. So then once we pulled that turmeric and pivoted some different strategies, then, hey, you know what? I feel better. I don't really have this joint pain anymore. So, oh my gosh, like that does make a difference. So coming back to that quality of life piece, those little things that make a difference.
Makes a difference. I got that. Okay, I think I'll have to check some things too. Thank you. So, how does mindset and stress influence overall health?
Yeah. So perspective, what we think, I can't do this because, or I can't stick with something. Consistency is something that a lot of clients come to me with. I have a really hard time. I'm just not consistent. They don't even say that really. It's just, I have too many other things in the way that I can't get this thing done that I want to. And so our brain believes what we tell it, right? If I say, I can't, that's setting up a very negative response. You can get into the energy and the vibration, the frequency of our different emotions and things like that. And it just sets you down a different path. How you're looking at things, what your perspective, your mindset is, I can't, then it's going to be really hard on that subconscious level to actually be able to do it because your brain is then saying, but we haven't done it this way. And so now you say you want to go exercise, but we haven't done that before. And that's where we get that push pull. And especially as we get into, the beginning of the new year and everyone has their resolutions that they want to do because the date on the calendar has changed and it's just maybe good for a few days. You're kind of going on the excitement, a little bit of adrenaline, but then something happens and it's like, oh, so I can't do that. And that's where a lot of the resolutions, I think the statistic I've seen most recently is maybe like 80% of New Year's resolutions fail in the first few weeks because we're not setting ourselves up with that right mindset to actually make those long-term changes. And if we don't have that consistency, and it's said that we need about 67 days to really make a new habit stick, then that's where it can get really hard. And so that's something that I talk with a lot of my clients about, where you say you can't, or I think there's something deeper there. Is it fear? You're afraid because you don't know. This is new. It's unknown of what might happen. And so fear and hesitation, these things really can affect us on a deeper level. When we get into then that piece of stress, what's happening at the gut level, if we're really stressed, and that can really have an impact on our immune system. And a lot of our immune system resides in the gut. And so we can then, I see it a fair amount if someone is a more stress prone person where they feel like worried, anxious, everything, if they're like type A, for example. I've had a couple of clients where admittedly it's like, I need to be in control of everything. And if it doesn't go exactly how it needs to, I feel more stressed. And those are the people that tend to have colds, illnesses a little bit more frequently because they're putting their body in overdrive and they're staying in this fight or flight mode instead of getting into that rest and digest and having that nice wave of, let me relax a little bit, take care of myself. And so that can really make a difference when we get into what's happening there at the gut level.
Very true. Very true. I agree with that. Okay. Back to the turmeric stuff. All right. So how can someone figure out which healthy foods work best for their body? How can, there are a lot of stuffs that we can eat now. To some, turmeric is really, really, effective no matter how they use it. And to some, like the story you shared, they have to use it precisely in a particular way. So for folks who like to know about, the healthy foods that work best for them, how can they discover it?
So what I do in my practice is an anti-inflammatory testing where we're actually looking at the inflammatory response from the white blood cells and how it changes in response to a whole variety of foods and even food chemicals. So that's something available in the United States. And outside of that, if someone doesn't want to go down the realm of testing, really then the next option would be, and it takes a little bit more time, but if you're diligent about it, keeping really just a journal or maybe even doing an elimination diet where you say, okay, I'm only going to eat this certain set of foods for say a week's period of time. And then you can kind of be a digestive detective in that way. So you can see, okay, when I was eating these things, this is how I felt, and really be very diligent about it. I think that would be a good alternate way to do it. It does take a little bit more time. And sometimes it can be confusing because if there is, something else filling the bucket, like you had a really poor night's sleep because you were worried about something, like coming back to that bucket analogy of a poor night's sleep, we're stressed out about something, and then that could affect what's going on the inside. So maybe you had those foods a couple weeks ago and they were fine because you weren't stressed out. But now if you are in this state of stress, fight or flight, on the inside, your digestion isn't going to be working the same. So it could make those same foods feel different. So looking at you, not just from the food perspective, but really you as a whole, what's going on? How did you sleep? What did you, what was your movement? What were you exercising? What were your interactions? Were you on like a work day? Was it a busy day? Were you traveling? That can make a difference too for people, just throwing off your schedule. So there's a lot of other factors. So really being diligent of everything that's going on in the day, because it's about so much more than just food when we get into that.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And you just opened my eyes to something amazing. Thank you. Okay, so to bring this to an end, Kate, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those guys who would like to reach out to you, learn more about everything we've talked about, or even ask questions, how can that be possible?
So I would say final thought being always be your best advocate. Question things. Don't just take something at face value, especially when you hear, anecdotal things. Well, I did this, or my friend's sister's neighbor did something and it worked for them, because everybody is different. And so being in that state of comparing, that comparisonitis, where it can really just be this consuming thing, that isn't going to serve you in any beneficial way, because what you have going on is going to be different from what someone else is going on. So being your own best advocate, questioning things, figuring out what works for you, paying attention, listening to your body, intuition, strongly connected with your gut. I think that is really super important, instead of just, okay, I have, say, this diagnosis, let me just follow this specific list of foods and see how that goes, because there's so many other pieces that could be at play there. And then as far as getting in touch with me, my website is digestionbydesign.com, and I have a couple of freebies there. One of my most favorite ones is the inflammation impact survey. I think it's called the 60-second health check right now. And it's basically just how the gut and inflammation can be affecting various areas of your body that you might not really think about. And so that can be really insightful for people to get started on their journey when they're really beginning to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And then social media too, Facebook, Instagram, Digestion by Design. So those are all the places where I'm at.
Beautiful. So that's going to be the end of the show, Kate. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing this powerful and invaluable information with us. It means a whole lot. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.